Hey, Zonky the Donkey here, and if you're like me, many times after you die, you second guess your last decisions you made up to the point of your death. And that's a really common, reaction to have and trying to figure out what you did differently. So today we're going to be talking about taking good engagements, and we're going to be defining what a good engagement is and what good decision making is and how we can do that on the fly in a game. So taking good engagements is basically a multi-step process. You have to ask yourself a series of questions before you willingly engage an enemy. A lot of this isn't going to apply if obviously you're shot at first, but you're all presented with these scenarios throughout games where, oh, you see a guy running in the distance, you could probably hit him a couple times, but there's a lot of question marks that occur after that time that, you really need to answer before, if you can take a good engagement or not. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, am I able to kill the enemy that I see? And there's a couple subparts of that is, number one, do you have the right weapon for the job? Do you have the correct sight? Do you have just a 2x or a 4x, or do you have a red dot sight? And what range is that enemy at? And, can you hit that enemy with the sight you have? And also, how is your accuracy? If you don't have the greatest aim, maybe you shouldn't be taking these longer range engagements, kind of like the one I'm at now. And also, the last thing you need to consider is, what weapon does the enemy have? Say if you've just got maybe iron sights or a red dot sight on an M16, and your enemy has a Kar 98 or a sniper, he's just he has displayed the ability to aim at long range, maybe you shouldn't be engaging that guy right away and maybe instead breaking contact. The second thing you need to ask yourself before shooting at an enemy that doesn't see you is, how much risk are you exposing yourself to by opening fire? You need to ask yourself a few things is, where are you in relation to the circle? If you're right on the edge of the circle or where it's going to be like you are now, you can comfortably feel that there's probably not going to be as many people coming from the direction where the circle is. Number two is, are there enemies close by? Have you seen anyone, heard anyone shooting in the past 30 seconds near your position? And then ask yourself, are you in cover? Are you in the middle of a field, just, seeing a guy like I am right now, being a moron, just shooting with the incorrect sight? Or, are you in a good concealed fighting position where if you start shooting, no one's going to see you? And then also, have you looked around recently? Have you gone and checked, your six and, a couple of the hills to your left and right to make sure no one's looking at you? The next thing to consider before taking an engagement is, what do you have to gain from it? And the first thing we'll talk about is loot with that. And so, before you start shooting an enemy, ask yourself, what kind of gear does the player have? Does he have like an AWM or an M24 that's going to make it a really valuable target to go after? Or does he just have maybe an SMG and a shotgun and he's hiding out in a house and maybe you can just bypass him because there's not a ton to gain? You have to consider what you have in your inventory currently. Are you good on meds? Are you good on ammo? Because you start to have to considering a risk versus reward system, because if you're really low on ammo or meds or something, you can afford to take some bigger risks, because to make it to the end game, you're going to need some of that better equipment. And then also you'll have to consider, how big of an upgrade, is it from going from, one set of gear to the next. So if you've already got like a silenced M16 and a Kar 98 with an 8X and a cheek pad and maybe a silencer for that too, you can afford to probably bypass a few of the enemies you come across if it's a threatening enough scenario, like if you don't have position on them, for example. Like if you're in the middle of open field and they're in cover and you need to press on them, maybe you can find another way around rather than going head on into them. The other thing you need to ask about what you have to gain is in relation to taking or denying terrain to the enemy. And as I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, have made it to the end game, the last few circles, positioning and terrain is everything. And this is another huge risk versus reward scenario where if you can take the really good fighting position and key terrain from an enemy, you put yourself in so much of a better chance to win that round. So, this is what you have to consider is, so it may be worth throwing everything headlong to get to that position, even though you may only have a 25% chance of winning. But if you do win that, maybe you go from a 75% chance of winning the whole game if you get to that piece of terrain. So just ask yourself, go back through this video and ask yourself, is this a good engagement as you're going through your games? And if it's not, it's okay just to turn around and go the other way. So I hope you guys were able to get something from this. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield.